welcome to Cockeyed Optimist Radio Free Rock, the show where we learn, talk, and rock. This is episode 3, the Declaration of Independence, the UN, NATO, the WEF, and the American spirit versus the New World Order. From up here I see it all, the city is asleep, believes on its light. A world of fragile peace changes in an instant, and so I'll wait, ready to defend. I'm here to save you from yourselves. Can you tell what's real and what's fantasy? It's not as simple as it seems. The evil lies within. Are you afraid to see? Victims of a broken system, the guilty all go free, absolved by false alibis. No one knows who to trust, blindly the blind, and so I stand steady to the end. I'm here to save you from yourselves. Can you tell what's real and what's fantasy? It's not as simple as it seems. The evil lies within. Are you afraid to see? It's time to believe in something bigger than you can see. But don't you put all your faith in me, for I am just a man living in the shadows behind a screen. I'm here to save you from yourselves. Can you tell what's real and what's fantasy? It's not as simple as it seems. The evil lies within. Are you afraid to see? Are you afraid? Hello, hello. I'm Cinda.
I'm Sean. We are Cockeyed Optimist, and welcome to episode 3 of Radio Free Rock. Coming to you for the first time from our brand new studio.
Yes, and it's been a really long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Partially because we've been building out this new space. If you haven't seen any of the posts we've been making on our socials, follow us on your favorite socials. You can see what this room looked like before we did all this work. And we'll fly some shots of it as we're, talking right now. But this was quite a project.
Yeah, it was. It was dark, dark green.
Yeah.
Like a deep forest green and high gloss, by the way.
Yeah.
So we had to fight the dark color and the gloss.
Indeed.
So this was, a coat of primer and then 3 coats of paint.
Yes.
Yeah.
A coat of primer, 3 coats of paint, and Philadelphia cream.
Philadelphia cream.
And hey, by the time you're watching this, it'll be just around the 4th of July.
Yes.
Happy 250, America.
America 250!
I had to throw the voice on for that one. But yeah, as you can see, new surroundings. Hopefully more episodes will be coming.
We're going to try to put these out at the beginning of each month. That's going to... For a while, we didn't really know what we were going to be doing with this, honestly.
And sometimes I don't even really know if I know what we're going to be doing with this, even when we do it.
We did the first 2 episodes, And then we were trying to decide, is this going to be weekly? No, that's way too much. We're trying to cover quite a bit of things in each episode. So I think monthly is going to be the best. And if we tell you, hey, it's going to be in the first of the month, then you know, hey, I need to look out for that. Cockeyed Optimist Radio Free Rock is coming around the first of the month.
And I think it's something important for us to address before we get into the topic today, that when we think about this show, we don't think of this show really as a current events show. I think we'll reference a lot of current events during the course of each episode, but really what we're doing here is more talking about greater concepts than just something that happened yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what, there's so many shows out there that are constantly, they're the constant comment. There's not a lot of greater context. So I want to make sure we take the full context of history and the current events, but bringing back the American spirit.
Indeed.
Because that's what it's all about. People don't realize how great America is, but I will say,
some people have recently been finding out.
Talking about current events, I feel like a lot of Europeans, but also people from around the world, coming here for the World Cup, their minds have been blown.
Absolutely.
If you haven't watched clips of people experiencing barbecue or Walmart.
And I'll just say, shout out to the Scots for embracing American beer. Actually, a lot of countries have been embracing American beer. The Germans have been lying to you. We can make beer here in the United States of America. But Germany, you still do a great job with your beer. That's an aside, though.
One of my favorite clips was someone saying, I feel like I've been lied to about America my whole life. And you know what? You have been. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And so I'm glad that many people in the world that have come here for the World Cup are having a great time.
Yeah.
Finding out, wow, Americans are actually nice and hospitable people, and there's freedom. There's so many options. That's the great thing about America. One time I was in the grocery store with one of my German friends, and she said something to the effect of like, sometimes it's so overwhelming here because you have so many options. But at the end of the day, that's what America, we have options.
We don't just have one ketchup in the ketchup aisle. We have 15.
You get to choose your own life. You choose your own adventure. That's the fantastic thing about America.
Indeed. And it's all right here in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is some of the things that have been happening on a grander scale that kind of seek to diminish some of that sovereignty a little bit. So you want to tell people a little bit about what kind of weeds we're going to get into today?
I think we should start by reading the Declaration of Independence.
All right, then.
We're not going to read it all. What we're going to read is the preamble, but we're not going to get into the specific list of grievances against King George.
Yeah. So with the preamble, let's get right down into it. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power is in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, invices a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. From here, we go to our list of grievances, as it were. So essentially, what we're going to be focusing on today is that long train of abuses and usurpations. Great word, by the way, usurpation.
Everyone knows we hold these truths to be self-evident portion. Mm-hmm. But I will mention there's a couple other lines that I do find very interesting. We have the laws of nature, and nature's God. Mm-hmm. So we have to follow natural law and divine law. Yeah. When any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. Also, that you shouldn't just change the government for light and transient causes.
Yeah, that one really stuck out
Definitely,
to me.
Because so often, and things become trendy, and it's, we need to abolish the Constitution. We need to change the government.
We need to abolish the Electoral College because we lost.
And then also, this is such an accurate sentiment on human nature. Mankind is more disposed to suffer because evils are sufferable than they are to right themselves, turn it all around, and abolish the forms that have caused the suffering. People will suffer, and then they'll suffer some more, and then suffering happens little by little, little by little, little by little, little by little. And it's easier to sort of fall into that decay than it is to say, hold on, let's turn this ship around. Yeah. And so I think that's what I want to talk about right now, is that we have fallen into a long train of abuses from little bits of suffering over time. Mm-hmm. So where would you say that this started?
Wow. Well, in the greater scheme of things, I actually, in my handy-dandy notebook here, I've begun writing essentially what I would call a framework of what the long train of abuses are. And it goes back, I would argue it even goes back to the very founding of our country. But I think what we really need to focus on are the post-World War II aspects of the long train of abuses, because from the end of World War II to now, less than 100 years, it seems like so much has happened so quickly.
Okay. So I would say let's bring up some of the specific arbiters of the long train of abuses. I would like to start with the United Nations. So, Sean, can you tell me, when did the United Nations actually begin?
Allow me to go to my notes. By the way, I got a lot of my information off readily available sources. No secret sources here. Wikipedia, Grok aggregating various different pieces. So if you want to cross-reference anything we say, you can easily just go to Google. We're not trying to dupe anybody here. So let's talk about the United Nations. The interesting thing I find about the United Nations is that it actually came into existence before World War II officially ended.
Is like, what, 6 months, 5 months before?
Pretty much. The basic early structuring of the United Nations, which was a gathering of the original member nations, was between April 25th and June 26, 1945. And the original, the sort of OG5, I guess you could put it, yeah, it's the UN Security Council. The US, obviously, UK, obviously, France, part of that, USSR, and China. Very interesting when you look at that original 5, and then consider that is still makes up 5 members, the permanent members of the UN Security Council.
It makes you wonder, can you get voted out of the permanent membership?
Right. Well, interesting little bit of trivia that I found in the research is that in the history of the United Nations, no nation state that is a member of it has ever left the body. However, like permanently. However, for a short period of time, one country left the United Nations in response to one of their enemies being nominated for a space on the Security Council. Indonesia in 1965, it was during a point of conflict between Indonesia and Malaysia that Malaysia was nominated for a space on the Security Council, and in protest, Indonesia left. They would later rejoin the following year.
It's almost like Bates Motel. You can check into the United Nations, but you can't check out.
Yeah, definitely seems like that. Originally drafted by 50 different delegates from the original 50 nations that were a part of that conference, and the charter took effect officially on October 24th, 1945, after being ratified by the OG5, the Security Council. We started out with a 50 membership body. Mm-hmm. It now totals in and around 193-ish nation member states. My point is we've gone from a body that has essentially tripled in size since its formation.
That's quadrupled in size.
Yeah, and it's quadrupled. Yeah, close to.
Yeah.
So I look at that, and then because you've now almost quadrupled in size of the body, you have all these internal conflicts with the members. It's like, I'll just provide a little personal comparison here. My high school class was only about 150 kids. Went to a private school in Southern California. Small classes.
Mine is 180.
Okay, so not too far off. Think about the interpersonal relationships you have in that size.
You simultaneously know everyone, but don't know everyone.
Exactly.
True.
And that's kind of my point. It seems like with the United Nations, we find ourselves with this large body that's supposed to do what, really? Foster better relations between the nations, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And
let's put a pin in the UN for right now. And I want to move on to the next long train of abuse, which I would consider NATO.
Okay.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Unlike one of the mainstream news outlets put the word trade for the T in one of their columns, and I'm just thinking, wait a minute, if you guys can't even get the NATO acronym right, how is the rest of the things in this column going to be accurate?
And these people have jobs.
These people have jobs. They don't fact check even themselves. North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Well, anyway, so when did NATO get started? NATO got started officially on April 4th, 1949. It can trace back some of its alliances and agreements to as early as 1941, coming through the Atlantic Charter that was signed between the U.S. and the United Kingdom. And then President Truman, essentially with his Truman Doctrine approach to foreign policy, this group came together to effectively combat communist aggression or perceived communist aggression coming out of the USSR. The original members of NATO, a very interesting grouping of countries, pay attention. France, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, United States, Canada, Portugal, Italy, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland.
So that's a pretty big group.
It's a pretty big group. And
when you think of it on the map, that's a pretty big grouping. It kind of reminds me of 1984. Now, the lines are drawn a little different. It is not the exact same Eurasia and Oceania that is delineated here, but it's a similar type of blocking. Like, this region is now a block. And so, if you know the story, there's only 3 countries in the world. There's Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. And so you're always told that we're fighting this person, this group, and that group's our friend. And then they'll change it. And so when you create these big groupings, you wonder, how can these dynamics actually work? And what I find interesting, taking the pin out of the UN for a second, was Russia not in the UN Security Council 5 grouping?
5 years earlier,
in
the USSR was part of the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council. NATO gets founded.
4 years later,
not anywhere near this original grouping.
How can that even work? And I also find it ironic, 1984 was published in the same year that NATO was found. I don't know if that means anything. I'm just saying I found it very interesting.
Maybe one day we'll get to ask George.
But we have the United Nations over here, working on peace, and then a couple years later, we found NATO, and wait a minute, we're against Russia, but we're for Russia. How does it work? And so in my opinion, it doesn't. All right, so let's move on to another train of abuse.
The most recent and the most recently egregious.
I would say the most insidious.
Better way of putting it.
Because we are only really going to focus on one grouping. But what we're actually going to talk about is NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And so the one we're specifically going to bring up today is the World Economic Forum, the WEF, the WEF, however you want to say it. World Economic Forum. So Sean, when did that start?
So, the World Economic Forum was officially founded on January 24th, 1971, and solely by Klaus Schwab. This was his brainchild. Something to note is that Schwab is said to be a former engineer, and he was taught as a business professor at the University of Geneva in Switzerland. Now, there are a couple interesting things about the WEF in its initial form. It actually was originally known as the European Management Forum. Interesting. EMF. Just that's funny to me. It was originally meant to be a grouping of European business leaders to basically discuss new ways of doing business and new economic practices to influence the world, and mostly really at that point in Europe. So when its first meeting happened, it was solely business leaders. But the second ever meeting was the first time a head of state showed up, Pierre Werner, the Prime Minister of Luxembourg. When I find that so interesting because I remember first learning about Luxembourg when I was a teenager, and obviously finding out it's such a small country in Europe. But the thing that always stuck out to me about Luxembourg as far as the facts back then was like, oh, it's this really small country. It's like one of the richest countries in Europe.
I always remember my French teacher just going, teeny tiny country of Luxembourg. I can't do a French accent, but Madame Smith, well, she was actually French, so
she was
what state it is equivalent in size to?
That would be very
It's probably one of the smaller ones.
Definitely. But I just find that so interesting. It's like it's only the second year that it's happened, and by that time, a head of state from like one of the smallest countries in Europe,
but one of the richest,
and eventually one of the richest. Hey, I'm the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, just showing up at this EMF conference. One of the biggest controversies with the WEF is mostly related to Klaus Schwab because he doesn't already look enough like a comic book villain or sound enough like a comic book villain.
He actually looks like Bond villain #1.
Yeah, he does. He looks like Blofeld. He looks like Blofeld with like Dana Carvey from Master of Disguise when he's the turtle guy who's got the turtle lip.
You know what Klaus Schwab actually needs?
What? He needs a cat. He needs a Mr. Bigglesworth.
Hairless cat. Mr.
He needs a Mr. Bigglesworth. Oh my God. He needs a Mr. Bigglesworth. That's the only. Oh, man.
We should put that up on the screen.
Oh.
Klaus Schwab, superimpose a hairless cat next to Mr. Bigglesworth.
Isn't that not a pretty picture? Ew. Anyway, the real controversy for, I think, a lot of us Americans is that at one point in time, Schwab had a very close relationship with Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, of course, is a former Secretary of State.
National Security Administrator.
And again, this is all information that the WEF champions. They make no bones about this relationship. Schwab himself even would refer to Kissinger as his mentor. At the time, Schwab met Kissinger when Kissinger was teaching at the Harvard School of Government. And it was upon seeing and hearing Henry Kissinger give a lecture that Klaus Schwab essentially says he opened his eyes. Opened his eyes to what exactly? I can't really say. But again, none of this is conspiracy. This is all publicly available from their own publishing, from their own documents. So, for whatever you feel about Henry Kissinger, and there's quite a lot of people that do not have good feelings about Henry Kissinger, it stands to reason why a lot of Americans would be skeptical of the WEF, Klaus Schwab, and most of the things that they espouse.
So, back to our Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. The next part of that sentence, pursuing invariably the same object. What is that object? And I would argue the overthrow of the American experiment. The idea of self-governance, the consent of the governed, the idea of the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That is what the American experiment is about. Now, why do I say that this is the object of the UN, NATO, and these NGOs? Well, I would like to present some evidence to that hypothesis right now.
All right, then. All right, Cinda, present your evidence.
Let's start with the United Nations, since that's where we began, and let's look at the Sustainable Development Goals. This was first presented at the 1992 UN Conference on Population and Environment in Rio, Brazil. This is a quote from Maurice Strong, who announced the keynote address at that conference. And this is what he said in 1992. Industrialized countries have developed and benefited from the unsustainable patterns of production and consumption, which have produced our present dilemma. Notice the use of the word dilemma. We already have a problem. It's just like assumed there's a problem. Anyway, it is clear that current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, consumption of large amounts of frozen and convenience foods, use of fossil fuels, appliances, home and workplace air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable. A shift is necessary towards lifestyles less geared to environmentally damaging consumptive patterns. This doctrine was formalized into the infamous Agenda 21. It's sort of renamed Agenda 2030 now, but the 21 stands for the 21st century. So this, in 1992, is their idea for the 21st century. A couple little keys that, to me, on that were just like, are you kidding me? All right, the frozen and convenience foods, I'll give them that one. I'll agree with that. But the use of appliances,
But it's not. There's one other one that right after that.
Yeah.
The air conditioning thing, which is hilarious because we literally, before we got started rolling camera for this, watching a news report from France about the current heat wave going on in Europe, and like 40 people died in one night because it was too hot in France.
Wow. I didn't know that part. I know that they don't have air conditioning. A lot of Europeans don't have air conditioning.
Which I did not realize until seeing people coming here for the World Cup and being amazed by the air-conditioned stadiums. Which, by the way, I have never been to an air-conditioned stadium. I've been to an air-conditioned arena, not a stadium.
It actually reminds me of this little bit from Friends.
Ross play rugby? I don't think so.
What's so funny about that?
Well, I mean, you're American to start with. You don't really have rugby here.
Well, we didn't have freedom here until 1776 either,
So good then. We'll see you at Riverside Park at 2. Cheers.
Cheers.
He's saying that it's a problem. It's a dilemma.
It's a dilemma.
That the middle class, the affluent little middle class, are we rich or are we the middle? Anyway, that the affluent middle class has things like appliances and air conditioning. Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
And so that really gets me, the air conditioning and the appliances. Oh, and suburban housing. That, to me, really gets my goose. And it's not just because we live in the suburbs.
No.
That we do. Look, we have this room that we've dedicated to this use. What it gets me is that it's private property, suburban housing, but you could also put the term rural homes in here too if you wanted. This is a direct affront to owning your own home, which our Constitution says you have the right to your own private property. And so those three items the most really bother me.
It's funny, just realizing this is back in 1992. You know, at that point, we would have been, 5, 6 years old? And so here we are now, all these years later. It's like this has been going on for far longer than either of us probably realized when we really started understanding, or at least learning. I wouldn't even say I understand anything anymore. But just learning about this stuff and realizing just how far back these things are going and how so much of our lives from that point on were governed under that.
So at this conference was the beginning ideas of the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st Century. I'm going to read this list of items, and I want you, the watcher, the listener, to think about them. One, think about how do they sort of go against American ideals in our Constitution, in our founding documents. And two, how some of them are actually impossible to ever achieve.
Or at least impossible to measure your success rate.
That is an excellent point, Sean. Note the vagueness of them. And I think that's the biggest point I want to make as we go over these. Number one, no poverty.
Noble, but how could you measure success?
Plus, if you give every person, say, a stipend of $5,000 a month to get through the month, there are going to be some people that spend it throughout the month. There are going to be some people who spend only a little and save a bunch, but there inevitably will be some people who spend it on the first, second, third of the month, and the rest of the month they have no money.
Yeah.
You have to completely change human nature for there to be no poverty whatsoever.
What's the next one?
The second one is like it. Zero hunger. Yes?
Noble.
Zero.
Very noble idea. But again, how do you, as I said at the beginning, how do you measure the success of that? It's not even necessarily like, we can say this being that we're married, we know that each other has different eating habits and different food intake needs. But even still, it's like,
It hurts Sean's brain.
It hurts my brain because at the end of the day, when you set a goal for yourself or a group of people, there has to be some sort of practice to attain success in mind. These two things already, there is no good method to measure success for that. It's a noble intent, but noble intent and noble action do not coincide.
So 0 poverty and 0 hunger. How
Fantastic, but how do we do that?
How do we do that?
How do we do that?
When my Graves' disease was really bad, I was so hungry and I needed to eat all the time.
Right.
What is my ration? And that means you're going to have to ration food for people.
Yeah.
You know what rations always lead to? Hunger. Look up one time in history where the food was rationed and there weren't people starving to death. It hasn't happened. So my first 2 points, their first 2 points alone are impossible.
What's the next
All
one?
right, let's keep going. Good health and well-being.
Fantastic idea. But when we consider a lot of the things that have been implemented by a lot of these NGOs, and I would also not just classify the United Nations in this fashion. The WEF has had a handle in this, and other nonprofit organizations that seek for green solutions. It's the quick adoption of these programs, these measures to try to achieve that goal that leads to worse health, worse outcomes for human health, environmental health.
To me, I can just take 2 of the words and say, how do you classify them? How do you qualify good health? What is good to someone isn't good to someone else.
Yeah.
You see someone who's like a super biohacker and like to them, like it has to be dialed in to the perfectest most amount for them to feel they have good health. Versus someone else is just like, I just want to drop 5 pounds. That's all I care about.
All right, let's keep going.
Same thing for number 4, quality education. What is quality?
Keep going.
Gender equality.
I don't want to touch that one right now. Don't want to touch. Keep going.
You know what that reminds me of? Another Friends moment.
I mean, to listen to a woman complain for 2 hours, I don't think it gets better.
I know. We can drive, we can vote, we can work. What more do these broads want?
Okay, number 6, clean water and sanitation. All right, pretty good.
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
I can get on board with that.
But again,
But apparently, hold on. But apparently, that might fall under the keynote speaker guy's dilemma.
We have an appliance in our house that filters the water. Uh-oh.
See, there you go. There you go.
Uh-oh,
There you
we
go.
broke it. Number 7, affordable and clean energy.
I'll take affordable energy, but
But again,
clean.
what is affordable?
But what is affordable? What is affordable? What's clean? I mean, clean air. Anyway, keep going. Keep going.
I know what you're thinking
no,
about.
Not going there.
I know what you're thinking
Not
about.
going there.
Oh, man, I love these adjectives they use because they're so vague and unquantifiable. Decent work and economic growth.
You know, I once had a decent job. It paid a real decent amount of money. You know what really sucked about it, though? The workplace. You can't get decent work with undecent coworkers.
What's decent? To somebody, a job that pays $2,000 a month is decent. To someone else, it's $5,000. To someone else, it's $10,000. We all have different standards, and that's part of the key core problem with all of these interlocking, whatever you want to call it. Everyone has different ideas of what good, decent, well actually is for them. And so the only way you get everyone on the same page actually comes down to bringing the high standards down.
Yeah, that's really all that
And that
happening.
is not American people, because we believe in a more perfect union. How can you make something more perfect? It perfects itself over time. That's what we believe in America. So squashing standards, that should not be in our vocabulary, folks, as Americans. Number 9, it's vague. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure.
I don't want to touch that one.
California potholes and crumbling.
And high-speed rail.
Crumbling infrastructure. DWP is 100 years old. Reduced inequalities. And here is where we have, you have to bring the people who are doing well down. There is no other way.
You have to bring the well down in order for the unwell to go up. Again, there's just no way to measure success in that because everybody's drive is just different.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Sustainable cities and communities.
Nope, keep going.
Responsible consumption and production.
Again, how do you qualify responsible? But then not only how do you qualify responsible, how can you get people to, you can't even get some people to drink responsibly. And I don't just mean alcohol. I mean even just basic water. There are people who just don't drink water. They're constantly dehydrated. So keep going. I can't handle this.
The consumption, that's saying there can be no consumerism. We have to stop consumerism. One of our friends wanted to be completely anti-consumer, okay? And so his girlfriend said he needs some new socks right now, but he doesn't want to be a consumer, so he doesn't want to buy the socks. And I said, well, okay, one, is he going to buy the yarn to knit the socks? If he's not buying the yarn, then that would be consumerism. So buying the yarn would be consumerism. So now I have to go back a step further. Now he has to make the yarn. I said, is he going to take cotton and spin the yarn? Well, where is he going to get the cotton? He would have to buy it. So now we have to go a step back. Is he going to grow the cotton to then spin the yarn to make the socks? And then she goes, yeah, I see your point.
Keep reading the list.
Number 13, climate action. Action.
No,
Let's just do action.
No.
This one is actually my favorite on the list. Number 14 is my favorite.
What is it?
Life below water.
Jeez.
Most people are going to think of that as just fish and whales. Save the whales. But honestly, when you actually read some of the other things that some of these people say, I'm like, you know what? I don't think life underwater means that. I bet it means something else. Like they want to live underwater. That's my perspective. That one was my favorite.
BioShock is a thing.
It's BioShock.
It's BioShock. It's BioShock. And we all know what happened to Rapture.
Next one, life on land. Like, we don't already have that. Peace, justice, and strong institutions is point 16. We gotta have our institutions, people. Nothing like institutions. And then 17, what kind of goal is this? Partnerships for the goals. That's like not a goal. That's, how can you have a goal of a goal? They can't even write their own talk. So, I'm sorry that was very long. That was the 17 points.
You know, when we started reading this list and I felt like we were going to like say a little bit about each point and move on. Like at the beginning, I was like kind of enthusiastic about like that idea. But then the more we read the list, I more just got angry at how vague it was. Like,
it's so vague.
As I said at the beginning, noble intent is one thing, but action has to come along with the intent. Action has to eventually reach a goal. Now, I'm sure in that 900-page document that there's plenty of detail about how they're going to reach those goals that they've outlined with these vague headlines of the points. I'm sure there's plenty of detail because it always works this way. Vague, nice sounding, noble sounding buzzwords backed by zero substance.
Conversely, with these UN goals that are so vague, our Constitution is actually very specific. It'll say things like, no troops can be quartered in your house during time of peace without the consent of the owner.
Right.
We have our First Amendment. You, the individual, have freedom of speech, freedom of religion. These are specific things. You can be any religion you want. You can say whatever you want. Our laws are not that vague. I asked Google AI, how does the UN Agenda 21 conflict with the US Constitution? This is what it said to me. The UN Agenda 21 does not legally conflict with the US Constitution because it's non-binding, voluntary resolution that carries no weight as federal, state, or local law. There are many things. This is how they get around things. Legal loopholes. These are all just suggestions. We just suggest things. And so they're not legally. But when you start getting people, politicians, that can make them a part of the legal framework, they have successfully now infiltrated. And so what items does Google AI say it actually can have some conflict, even if it's not legally? The Fifth Amendment end part says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So it's telling me about ideas of zoning laws, smart growth regulations, easements that can strip landowners of their property rights without, again, just compensation. Well, the owner has to decide, you know what? I will sell you that piece of land of mine to the government. I think that is just. And so our private property is secured very clearly in our Fifth Amendment. Our national sovereignty, Article 6 of the Constitution, which is the Supremacy Clause, establishing the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. It's saying the elected representation and accountability of Article 1 of the Constitution, saying that these initiatives are driven by non-elected regional boards and non-governmental organizations. Mm-hmm. That is where I say these sustainable development goals are pursuing invariably on the same object to overthrow the American governance, to overthrow the Constitution and our laws.
And what you said, and I think now we can kind of even put a button on the UN and even start to move into NATO and the WEF, is that these non-governmental organizations, these just sort of large bodies of multiple participants that are non-elected, that are not, they're not given any power by the consent of the governed. That's where we're starting to get in with a lot of those issues. When we were talking about NATO, I think one of the things we're seeing now and why it's starting to become one of these things where a lot of people in the United States don't want us to be part of NATO anymore is because it's essentially now encompassing the whole world. Where it's like, it's no longer the North Atlantic Treaty. It's like the World Treaty against Russia. You know, we're the big kid like across the street and we just kind of want to not be bothered and annoyed. Then the rest, that's Russia. Then the rest of the world is the person who's like, yeah, well, we're like the group of kids that like make fun of you all the time. And the group just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Russia's just like, hey, can you just leave me alone? Can you just like give me some space here? But then all of a sudden, NATO starts coming closer and closer and closer, and Russia finally was just like, okay, I'm done here.
Yeah, that is what happened.
Because now, to me, NATO, it says it's combating the spread of that. The whole idea was to combat communist aggression. Well, we sure aren't combating communist aggression here.
That is very true.
We aren't combating communist aggression in anywhere else. And God forbid that we do it. And everybody gets all in a tizzy. We've got it going on right here, right now. But no, we still want to act like Russia is the Soviet Union. And you know why we're still doing it. And we've seen it with people we know. Because people still see Russia as the Soviet Union.
Especially the people I know over 70.
Look, I have no opinion on Russia other than I have known plenty of people within the guitar world from Russia that build some really great gear. And they are incredibly nice people. But the perception that Russia is still the Soviet Union is so prevalent.
Yeah.
I can't. The Berlin Wall fell. The USSR disbanded. That's why the United Nations increased in size almost 4 times.
Well, and what did we get from NATO, actually? A 44-year Cold War with the USSR? That's what we got out of NATO. And on that point of so many people still seeing the USSR, Russia as the USSR, what did they get during that period? Our parents, our grandparents? They got a whole bunch of fear.
They got fallout shelters. They got
there was
bombing
a fallout
drills.
Shelter under my elementary school. We went down there right when the school was closing, and I was like, whoa, this is weird. Honestly, I didn't feel like, how could we live under here? This doesn't even make sense. But they got hide under your desk. Oh, there's going to be a bomb. Maybe my little desk will protect me. They got sold fear.
They got sold
And that
fear.
is not American.
I got a little animated. But I get animated because this whole conversation really gets on my nerves. And it gets on my nerves because I have grown up around people that directly came to the United States because they were fleeing communism. One of my neighbors growing up, a quite famous actor, came to America from Cuba to flee Castro and the regime and communism.
And we don't mean like an actor that no one's ever heard of.
No.
That's not what we mean.
No.
Because Sean grew up in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This was like a lister. But even more than that, one of my high school classmates, her mom was the first Cuban American in her family. So her grandparents left Cuba, came here fleeing communism. Her little brother played baseball with my brother. Communism and the fleeing from it has been something that I've been very familiar with. And now we see communist aggression doesn't look like it used to. Communist aggression looks different now.
It looks like these NGOs. And that's the next part of the Declaration of Independence, where it says, reduce them under absolute despotism.
And what is communism if not absolute despotism? Now, some of you will hear that and say, oh, but that's not, we've never really had communism before. It's never really been tried. BS. It's been done. It's been tried. It has never worked, and it will never work. Because inevitably what happens is either you get one person or a group of people, and they consolidate. They consolidate all the power, and the people get nothing.
So back to our World Economic Forum and the absolute despotism. The video, and it's still online on Facebook on the World Economic Forum's page 10 years later. So this was published in 2016. And it's called 8 Predictions for the World in 2030. I don't know about you, but that's only 4 years from now.
Yeah.
Number 1, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. To me, I'm going to be unhappy just to spite you. Whatever you want, you'll rent and it'll be delivered by drone.
I would like a Marshall JCM 900. How could a drone deliver me a Marshall JCM 900? It's difficult enough for my UPS guy to deliver it. How could a drone do that?
I guess they get bigger drones. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. Okay. A handful of countries will dominate instead. Who decides what countries they are?
Yeah, who decide? There's already a handful of countries that dominate the global superpowers anyway, but who's to decide?
Number 3, you won't die waiting for an organ donor. We'll print new organs instead.
So
we're bionic people, I guess.
So we're going to be Darth Vaders?
Yes. Yes.
Huh.
You'll eat much less meat.
Yeah, but the last time...
An occasional treat, not a staple for the good of the environment and our health.
But the last time I ate less meat, I got angry.
When I eat less meat, I get sick. I get weak. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change.
Now, hold on a second. Are we sure the billion people are going to be displaced, or are they using displace as a kind word for disposed?
No, they mean displaced. Because the second half of that is, we'll have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees. But I remember when Al Gore told us that we were going to have 100 million climate refugees. They upped it to 1 billion in here.
They 10x'd it.
We 10x'd it. And yet I have seen neither of those numbers occur. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history.
Question.
This also makes everything cost more.
Question. If there's going to be a price on carbon, does that mean there's going to be a price on us?
That is the best question of
Are
them
we
all.
not carbon-based life forms?
I believe we're 96%
I'm
carbon.
sorry, I'm just some musician. Don't know nothing about that and old science learning stuff, but aren't we supposed to be carbon-based life forms?
Number 7, you could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. The start of a journey to find alien life?
So, I have something to say on that. If we're supposed to be going to Mars, why are you being so awful to Elon when he's trying to get to Mars? That's all I'm saying. You know?
I could care less.
I could really care less. I'll die before I go to Mars. That's
I have
fine.
no desire to go
I have
to
no
Mars.
desire.
But the last one, to me, is the most chilling. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. My question is, why will Western values have been tested to their breaking point?
And to what are we comparing Western values to? Because you can't even say, oh, the Western values of a strong nuclear family are outdated. And it's like, but there's a strong core family value in Asian cultures too, which I guess you could consider an Eastern value. Like, what do you compare this to?
To me, it's not the comparison. It's that, why is it that Western values are tested to their breaking point?
Why can't other values be tested?
But why would that even be occurring? Why isn't someone stopping that? Why is that not the question? That to me is the real problem, and that's the real chilling part of it. It's like, well, there's got to be a reason that the Western values are being tested to their breaking point. What is that reason? And figure out how to stop that. These are some of the long trains of abuses and usurpations that have pursued invariably on the same object of eliminating the American idea and to reduce us under the absolute despotism of globalism. It is now our right and our duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for our future security.
And I would go so far as to say this. We say this in terms of being American citizens and Americans. Wherever you are in the world right now, you take these things too. Consider the things that are happening in your country right now and do the same things to safeguard your country, your culture, your heritage.
Take on the American ideals. Take on the Declaration of Independence against this New World Order. So what are some of these things that can provide new guards for our future security?
Well, I can think of one right off the top of my head. Recently, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who, former at this point, released a bunch of files related to the gain of function funding for the Wuhan Institute of Virology related to one Mr. Anthony Fauci. We need to stop.
And Ukraine biolabs. And we
These
will talk actually more about that in the next episode.
But we need to stop these incessant scientific pursuits of essentially what equates to biomolecular alchemy. Let's manipulate a virus and just see what happens, whether it was leaked intentionally or accidentally. The prevailing theory of the lab leak with COVID-19 is becoming more and more accepted. And we all know what happened as a result of that leak.
We need to stop these Dr. Frankensteins from creating monsters in their labs.
Exactly. Something else that we can do.
We can start to onshore American jobs, bring back American manufacturing. And I hear the pushback and the argument, Americans won't do those kind of jobs. If you pay them a good wage, Americans will do any kind of job.
And I'll tell you right now from my own personal experience, having been involved in the guitar world for the majority of my professional life, all those jobs are manufacturing. Mm-hmm. And I have never seen a workforce more bonded and proud of what they do as when we were in Oklahoma City at Keeley Electronics.
Manufacturing guitar pedals.
But everything done under their roof. They take such pride in their work. And I feel like everyone we met, and we met basically the whole crew, everyone was so happy. It was incredible.
They were all, it was shocking. It was so much happier than people are in California.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was stunning to me.
Yeah.
Next thing we can do is pass voter ID, the Save America Act, to prevent non-Americans from voting in our elections.
And I want to just go a little bit more microscopic on that point there. Voter ID to protect the national elections. We live in Orange County, California. We cannot go and vote in LA County elections because we do not live within the borders of LA County. I live a county over, and I'm a United States citizen, and I can't vote in your local elections.
The point is that in LA, they just passed a city council ordinance to allow non-citizens to vote in local Los Angeles elections.
But I grew up in Los Angeles.
Can't vote there.
I was born in LA County, grew up in LA County.
And we get some of the downstream effects living in Orange County, being only a county away from LA policies, and yet now non-citizens are allowed to vote in LA County elections. And so it's ironic how so many people are like, that doesn't really happen. If it doesn't happen, then why is having ID such a problem?
You can't go to another democratic country and vote.
I don't go to Mexico and vote in their elections.
You can't. They wouldn't even allow you even if you tried.
I don't go to Europe and vote in the Danish elections.
You couldn't.
I don't do
they
that.
Wouldn't let you even if you tried. Why is it that the United States has to be the one to allow non-citizens of the country to vote in United States elections? No other democratic nation in the world, as far as I know, allows non-citizens to vote in their elections.
Something else we can do is secure the borders of the country. This prevents drugs from coming in through the border. It prevents human trafficking.
And at the end of the day, maintains national sovereignty.
Without borders, you aren't a country. You are just a blob of anamorphous shape. What makes you a country? you have to have a border. There are borders of Orange County. There are borders of California. And there are borders of the United States of America. Those are 3 separate borders.
Lest we also forget the favorite border of the gerrymandering, the district borders.
We have been redistricted 3 times in all of the 3 past elections.
Yep.
Half the time we don't even know who's in charge anymore because, we got drawn again.
But my point in bringing that up is they hate borders until they need borders. One of the other things that we can do, which has obviously been starting, is the defunding of non-governmental organizations. Nonprofit organizations that really are made up of people that are not elected by anybody being governed, but have a huge influence over policy decisions and essentially the law of the land, influencing politicians to govern in a certain way. Or
the politicians themselves being members
like on the board or
things like the WEF.
Yeah.
There was several politicians that were members of the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders. Pete Buttigieg, Tulsi Gabbard, Gavin Newsom. All people have been part of the World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders. And then we mix that with big tech people like Zuckerberg and founders of YouTube and Google and OpenAI, Sam Altman. Like, it was just a laundry list. And then you mix it with actors because the actors are hip, like Leonardo DiCaprio. And so it's like, we need to start defunding some of these groups. And it has begun with the defunding of USAID.
Right.
Because people think, we're just helping. It sounds so nice. USAID. Yeah. Except we don't know where a lot of that money's going. We have no idea who it's funding. And as we were talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, are these outcomes even achievable? Have any of the outcomes been reached?
Which leads to something that we didn't bring up earlier in the context of all of these 3 organizations that we've addressed. But we got a little curious as to what the United States' annual contributions, monetary contributions to these organizations are. Currently, we are giving $750 to $850 million a year to NATO, and to the UN, we are currently giving roughly $2 billion a year to the United Nations. And as of right now, there is no monetary contribution to the World Economic Forum in any sort of state capacity. But a lot of those names you just listed, those are current or previous high-level politicians. You listed Gavin Newsom. He's still the governor of California. With everything coming out about him right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow gave a little bit of money to the World Economic Forum on the side.
Which, who knows? It could be some of our money.
We don't know.
We don't know.
And that ultimately is why USAID was dismantled. Because it's taxpayer money going to what?
I think the last thing I want to bring up is just the exiting of the UN. We have officially not signed down to the WHO, which is a subsidiary of the UN, Pandemic Preparedness Treaty. We have officially exited that. But I think from Trump's speech at the United Nations last year in 2025, many of his statements kind of sound like he wants to exit the UN. I think maybe we'll pull up a clip or 2 of that.
Let's take a listen.
7 months I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. And in all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. No president or prime minister, and for that matter, no other country has ever done anything close to that. And I did it in just 7 months. It's never happened before. There's never been anything like that. I'm very honored to have done it. It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
The teleprompter going down, it's like, boy, if you thought you were going to get him to shut up with the getting rid of his teleprompter, you just dug yourselves in further and further and
I think
further.
he was only supposed to talk like
for 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah.
And it ended up being over 50 minutes long.
Yeah.
And everyone just had to sit there and listen.
And, to the point of like, why would you leave the United Nations? This is a group of people that are to foster world peace, la 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 la. And it's like, for all the time that the United Nations has been a thing, as I brought up earlier, it's effectively quadrupled in size since its founding. And yet, during the history of it, there has just been one new conflict after the other. Even now, there are still countries sitting on that body that are openly in conflict with one another right now. And it just feels like an organization that, for whatever its intent was, it is constantly rendered impotent.
Well, I can give you a specific reason to leave the United Nations. Amendment 14 of the Constitution, Section 4. Neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the #1 political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them, and not finance them.
Trump basically said, you UN guys, you gave a whole bunch of money to people invading our border. And so that $2 billion, the Constitution says we should get it back. It's not, or at least there should be no more money paid towards them because they're aiding an invasion of our country. So that's a specific reason, as per the Constitution, to leave the United Nations.
I'm not mentioning names. I see it, and I can call every single one of them out. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed. Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody is ever, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. You have the right to control your borders, as we do now. The previous administration also lost nearly 300,000 children. Think of that. They lost more than 300,000 children, little children, who were trafficked into the United States on the Biden watch, many of whom have been raped, exploited, and abused, and sold. Sold. Nobody talks about that. The fake news doesn't write about it. Any system that results in the mass trafficking of children is inherently evil. Yet that is exactly what the globalist migration agenda has done, and it's what it's all about.
Anything that I could say to sort of put a button on this one, there's always a possibility that you start out with the best of intentions. You start out with the best possibility in mind. But unless you're actually working on something, know a way to get to the goal, unless you have that, you're not going to get anything. And I find more and more evidence that when it comes to the United Nations, for as united as those nations are supposed to be in that building, they feel more divided with each passing year. With all of this having been said, why do we feel so strongly about this? I think the reason that we feel so strongly about a lot of this stuff is because we identify greatly with the American spirit. It doesn't feel like a lot of countries have what you would call a spirit quite like the American spirit.
Have you ever heard the term the English spirit?
Not once.
Have you ever heard the Colombian spirit?
No, not yet.
The American spirit is a thing.
And it's a thing that can be transferred and learned.
Yes, it's like a...
As we've instructed you all around the world to grab onto some of this American spirit. But what specifically do we mean when we say the American spirit?
I think some of the ideas are a can-do personality.
We don't say we can't. We say we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the spirit that drove the westward expansion, the
It's the spirit that drove the Wright brothers to say, we can fly. We may crash a whole bunch of times on the way, but we're going to get this thing up in the air.
It's the same spirit that led President Kennedy to say, whether you think the moon landing was faked or not, we choose to go to the moon.
Something else we do is we don't give up.
No, we don't.
We persevere. Just like I just mentioned with the Wright brothers, I don't know how many times their plane experiments crashed, but they persevered. Mm-hmm. They did not give up, and they flew.
Indeed.
And now people the whole world over can fly because they persevered.
Yep. Something else that the American spirit means is that we will not bow, or we will not be forced or coerced into submission.
I will not bow. I will not break.
She's singing again. She sings all the time. Good song, by the way. Good song. But essentially, it's one of the reasons why we saw a lot of the stuff with the pandemic. People not wanting to comply with many of the rules that were put in place.
Yeah. And when you are coerced, you are no longer free. So you cannot be coerced and free at the same time. So as Americans, we do not submit to being coerced or forced. In fact, our American spirit rises up inside of us and says, we will fight.
And we will be free in mind, in body, and in spirit.
We will fight if necessary. That right there, it is the right and duty to throw off such a government and provide new guards for future security. That may come with a fight.
Nope.
And our founders figured that out
Yep.
250 years ago. They didn't want to fight.
Nope.
People don't understand this, that aren't American. They did not want to fight. They wanted to be heard and their grievances addressed. And that's why they said, we repeatedly tried to get these grievances addressed.
And they never were.
You didn't do it. So now we're going to fight you.
The American spirit says that you have rights. We have rights as mankind. But they don't come by the pen of men. They come from above. We are endowed by the Creator, our Creator, with certain unalienable rights, meaning they cannot be separate from us. We live, we have these rights. We have this freedom of mind, this freedom of body, this freedom of spirit.
And men can't take that away.
And they cannot be taken away. But most importantly, the American spirit says one thing. There is always hope for a glorious future.
Glory. There is always glory.
Mm-hmm.
Old glory.
Yep.
And if you're not from America, that's what we call our flag. That's like a little nickname.
That's a
Old
nickname.
Glory.
Stars and stripes, old glory, all good stuff.
The last sentence of our Declaration of Independence, before the 56 people signed it, says this: "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor."
They put everything on the line.
Everything was on the line, and it's sacred. It means something. Being American means something.
It does.
I can't speak for other countries what it means to be in other country, but I know that being American means
With liberty and justice for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Being American means that.
Being American means glory.
But if there's one last thing I want you to know, it's that the New World Order is not your friend. The New World Order is real. The New World Order was never your friend. Except for one New World Order. And that was this guy's New World Order.
Hulkamania.
It's so weird to like look at all this in the context of my life and how like NWO pervaded my childhood. It maybe even pervaded a little bit of our merch. Yes, I really like lobbied hard for this design, for the shirts.
You can get this on our website,
we still have some left. We're putting them up on the website right now. You can go to cockeyedoptimist.net and get yourself a CEO NWO style t-shirt. If you're going to join any new world order, join the Cockeyed World Order.
And so this 4th of July, it marks our 250th birthday as a country. And so I want to go out and party myself hard, but I want you all to party harder than you have ever partied for Independence Day this year.
And if anybody tells you that you shouldn't, those people are not your friends.
Those are enemies of the Republic. We need to party and celebrate America so hard.
And we need to get back in touch with what it means to be a real American. That sounds like it would be a good song, wouldn't it?
I think so. So with that, we're going to play a song for you. I'm Cinda.
I'm Sean.
And this is dedicated to all you real Americans.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life. When it comes crashing down and it hurts inside, you gotta take a stand, it don't help to hide. If you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. I gotta be a man, I can't let it slide. I am a real American, fight for for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right, fight for your life. I feel strong about right and wrong. Don't take trouble for very long. No, I got something deep inside of me. Courage is the thing that keeps us free. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American. Fight for what's right, fight for your life. I am a real American. Fight for the rights of every man. Oh, I am a real American. Fight for what's right, fight for your life. So we make a stand and pray on this Declaration Day. We're independence, I will fight. With liberty, I will defy. So we make a stand and pray on this Declaration Day. Give me liberty or give me death. I'll fight to my last breath. So we make a stand and pray on this Declaration Day. For independence, I will fight. With liberty, I will defy. So we make a stand and pray on this Declaration Day. Give me liberty or give me death. I'll fight to my last. I am